Oh, we are back. Thank you for staying tuned into us here live on Bourbon on the Rocks here on the mighty FTR Radio. Thomas LaDuke once again along here with you. And as promised on this Ray Didia program, before I went off into that tangent about Michigan and gas taxes and my horrible impersonation of the governor, which is not going to get me invited to the re-inauguration January 1st. Guess I'm going to have to find something else to do that day. Miss Kemberlee Kaye from Legal Insurrection is joining me. How are you, Kimberly?
Doing great, thanks. How are you?
Well, you know, it's December 2nd, north of the 38th parallel.
So really cold.
Yeah, I woke up today, just in case people don't know, Kimberly's in the great state of Texas. So, of course, the weather's a little bit nicer down there, right?
Yes, very much so. Although, I don't know if we got one of those, what are they called, the northers or whatever that come down here and make it ridiculous. Polar vortex, right? Yes, we're getting sucked into that, so thanks so much for sharing.
That's not me, that's Canada.
Yeah, all right, we're in the Canadian.
I mean, honestly, you guys in Texas either get screwed from the north by Canada or south from Mexico.
It's true.
Really?
It's true.
It's like you're in the middle of an international sandwich, and basically in Texas it's like a country of its own. So it's a mess.
Well, it was a country of its own, but I won't go there.
Yeah,
I'll spare you.
Not
the Texas is the greatest republic in the Union spiel because it is early.
Well, get Governor Perry. Governor Perry loves to talk about that, and he gets that little twinkle in his eye and everything. And then I actually was going to question him one time about it, but I thought he might shoot me, so I just left it alone.
Well, it's always a possibility.
Yeah, from Detroit, I've seen that look before, so I'm just like, okay, let's skip that. So, Kimberly, you basically, we were talking off air there real quick that, you had a nice Thanksgiving and everything, and you're staying out of trouble overall, correct?
Mostly, I'm usually always in trouble with someone, somewhere, somehow. Sometimes intentionally, mostly not. But, yeah, it was a fantastic Thanksgiving. I was able to see family, friends, and went to East Texas, small town in East Texas, and spent time with my boyfriend's family, which was lovely, nice to get away. And, yeah, had turkey, watched football, went shopping, no complaints.
Wait a minute, you went shopping on Thanksgiving?
No. I'm not godless and heartless. I would never do that. But did go shopping Sunday afternoon.
Okay, all right. Just checking because we were going to have a talk. I used to work. I worked retail for 5 years, so I know all about that. And when they started getting to, hey, we're opening. I worked at Kohl's. We're going to open up at 4 a.m. the day after Thanksgiving. I was like, I am out of here. Are you kidding me? I worked retail, I guess, from the time I was 15 through college. I worked at Starbucks when I was in college. Okay. So I usually worked Thanksgiving Day. They would close early, somewhere around 2 on Thanksgiving Day. The day after Thanksgiving was horrible. You see the worst in humanity that day. And so, after doing that for several years, I was very happy to not have to be on the other side of the counter during the holidays, particularly on days like that. You know what?
People lose their ever-living minds over a latte. Crazy.
You know what? And if I actually drank lattes, I probably would lose my mind the day after Thanksgiving because I'd be like, "What the hell am I doing up?" Because
why am I drinking a latte?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and I'd be fetching it for Kurt Schlichter.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it just, that's just how life is. So, I mentioned before we brought you on that you now write over at Legal Insurrection.
I do. Absolutely love it. It's a fantastic site. We have incredible content. I think one of the things I really enjoy about Legal Insurrection, not just the site and the people that I write with, but in particular Professor Jacobson, who, if y'all aren't aware, he runs the site, started the site. He's also a political law professor at Cornell. Incredibly bright man, lovely man to work for. But the content that we produce, we really make an effort to have original content. So we're not just reblogging things, which there's merit to that, and that is something that needs to happen in terms of moving a story along and blasting the internet with some of these things that the media at large tends to ignore. That we really focus on trying to have original content or original arguments. So even if it's in the same vein of a story, you're getting a completely different perspective and a completely different angle. So it's really fun. It's really fun to be part of that. Of course, I write mostly about fun things like how dumb feminists are and what a pox on society they've become.
Oh.
But we do have a lot of really, really smart people over there that write a lot of really wonderful things. And it's a great site. Very, very happy to be part of it.
In my mind, and I think this is a compliment anyway, people develop into certain patterns when they have attained my age. When there's a breaking story on TV, I go to CNN, because that's what I did as a youngin'. I went to CNN. Right. And whenever anything happens in terms of a Supreme Court decision or something in terms of a legal decision, I always go to Legal Insurrection. Because as I mentioned, there's a breakdown there, and you said correctly, original content, but there's a breakdown there of actually what just happened or what's going to happen. It's not, this is unconstitutional because, I read the Constitution 30 years ago and I became a community organizer and I know what I'm doing.
Exactly. And I think, too, that the writers there really make an effort to break things down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this can be, if you're not used to reading these types of things, if you're not the type of geek or, like us who enjoy reading court cases and enjoy diving into these types of things, it can be very tedious, dry, and horrendously boring. But they do a fantastic job of really breaking things down into layman's terms so that anyone can understand it. I know as we get further into this immigration debate, I actually worked in immigration law for 6 years before getting involved in politics. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do the same, but on the immigration front. Because one of the things that's really lacking on the right is technical knowledge of what exists in order to be able to best determine how do we proceed. We can't possibly come up with viable options and viable alternatives to quote-unquote broken immigration system that everyone wants to talk about unless we actually have an understanding of what's in place, and beyond that, what's wrong with what's in place. Then we can identify what needs to be fixed. Anything beyond that, nothing more than political demagoguery. And so I really look forward to being able to bring some, I guess, technical knowledge to that discussion, particularly as we get the new Congress in session in January.
Oh, that's it's only December 2nd. Oh,
yeah, so it's a way.
It's coming,
it's coming
up.
Something to look forward to, right? So if you were, if you need immigration factoids and things like that, be checking out Legal Insurrection as we get further into that, because we will hook you up with what you need to know.
It's absolutely true, and unfortunately, with my intelligence level, I have to read a lot of these articles twice because they're so well done, and they're using words I don't understand. I have to go and Google them. Kemberlee, you wrote a piece yesterday over at Legal Insurrection called National Hands Up Walkout Protest, more like sit down, stay at work. What was that about?
Yeah, so, of course, it's always the same players, the same people who are involved in Occupy.
Yes.
Look for things like Ferguson in order to exploit them, and this is the Zelensky 101. And so, following all of the Ferguson protests, they AstroTurf organized these events all across the country. What we found, and it was very actually simple to do, just in following Twitter hashtags, is that at the same event you would have all kinds of different photographs, because one of the things that they did on their site their organizational site was they encourage people to attend these events to live tweet or post photos and things of that nature on social media, which is brilliant. But a lot of the photos that were being taken to make it look as though there were more people than were actually there, because you would get someone intentionally trying to frame things to make it look like you had a huge crowd, and someone else at the same location just snapping pictures and tweeting them would reveal that it was actually a significantly smaller crowd than what you may have been led to believe. And so we wanted to look into that a little bit. And, of course, the Ivy League schools, predictably, had some of the largest crowds. You get, again, the same players involved in Occupy who staged marches in Chicago and Manhattan. But beyond that, they were very, very small gatherings, shall we say, some having one or two people. And so, you know, particularly if you want to put that in, the media love to report the tea parties, which were always packed anytime these rallies happen. And they always love to underreport. It's always kind of fun, and I can't help but kind of chuckle to myself when I'm able to pull these things to expose the fraud, or expose these people for the fraud that they really are. So we had a little fun with that yesterday. That is absolutely ridiculous. And you know, you brought up the Occupy angle, and we were live for the Wayne Dupree show Monday after the announcement, and we extended for 5 hours because we were plugged into the official police, listening to what they were doing and the battle that they were fighting. And within 90 minutes of that decision being announced, you had all of these protests all over the country just pop up. And it wasn't necessarily being reported as spontaneous, but it was like, oh my God, look at the angst all over the country. You don't have a protest up in New York where they shut down the bridges spontaneously? Or no, you
Oakland?
don't. This was encouraged. This was actually encouraged, I believe, on the same website.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I mentioned, it is a situation where you have the same players behind all of this.
Yes.
They are, as, you know, Breitbart used to always call them, the gray-haired ponytails. And it's your hippie hangovers from the 60s. They're the ones who, and I mean, I hate to give hippies a bad name because there's some really fantastic hippies out there.
That's true.
But you do have that crowd that's still out there stirring up trouble and really exploiting the ignorant. And it's very, very unfortunate to see, and it always breaks my heart just a little bit because I always wonder what potential lies in these crowds and in these individuals if they were actually given a reason, a good reason, a productive reason to be civically engaged or civically involved. But there is a certain pride for anyone that's attended any type of rally or event or even gotten to vote. There's a certain pride that comes from doing your part and participating in our government, because it is our government by design. And I can't help but wonder if we were able to reach these people and find a way to show them how to productively engage. Not that protesting just because it's an issue that I disagree with is not productive, but to take that energy and to somehow find a way to translate that into something positive, productive, something that would help their communities. It's something that's always in the back of my mind when I watch these things.
Now, you've been doing this a number of years, and I think we met in Denver at BlogCon.
Correct.
I think it was in 2011, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my first political soiree. Yeah, I was still a brand new kid on the block at that time.
Okay, well this question I think is a really good one then. Not only because I'm asking it, but because it's insightful. Okay, so that was your first one. So that was 2011. I think it was in November or October. I can't. It was later in the year.
Yes.
I think
It was. I think November, sometime early November. I believe.
Okay. So you've now been doing this 3 years, and you've been blogging on and off since then. You've done other things. You said that you were you worked in immigration law for 6 years. How has new media blogging changed in that 3 years, do you think?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
Well, of course, Kimberlee, because I asked it.
Because you asked it. So that should be a given. I think what's really interesting to me is to see, of course, this was all a brand new phenomena to me when I first happened upon it.
Right.
But I feel like conservatives have learned much better how to leverage these things, much better how to use them to move stories, much better how to use them to pressure individuals who should be pressured for things. That being said, one of the things that does concern me, and this is something that I was thinking about yesterday, because one of the stories that I'd put together yesterday as well was that was kind of a comprehensive, up-to-date, this is what we know, everything that I could find that we know verifiably about that absolutely horrendous story in the suburb where a Bosnian man was beaten to death by hammers by some teenagers. And so one of the things that does concern me, though, is that because after dealing with proactively utilizing Alinskyism, I'm actually anti-Alinskyism in any form. I think there's some virtues that can be gleaned by dealing with the world as it is.
Yeah.
To me, this is just a good way to live life, making the media live up to their own standards. I'm fine with that, too. Really, beyond that, I think we venture into dangerous territory.
Okay.
For example, even with this story, which was horrible, even with this story about this man who was beat to death with hammers, of course, that story was not receiving the wall-to-wall coverage that Ferguson did when Michael Brown was first killed. So, obviously, the story about the Bosnian man is not politically expedient. No one has anything to gain by running wall-to-wall coverage on that, like they did in Ferguson, with the racial implications and the police brutality and social justice. And I mean, there's so many different angles there that are politically advantageous to the left. This story has none of those things, so obviously it's not receiving the same coverage. One of the things I do believe we need to be very cautious of, though, is becoming what we hate. And what I mean by that is we hate when the media overexploits issues like Ferguson, or tragedy, I should say tragedies, not issues, but tragedies like Ferguson. Yet we expect them to do the same thing, in the tragedy of this Bosnian, or what happened to this Bosnian man. And so, beyond that, you look at what happened to this GOP congressional aide and what she said on Facebook about Obama's daughters.
Right.
And I think the left is incredibly brutal. They're incredibly vicious, and we have to fight back. I do think there is a line there where we can fight back and still hold our heads high with dignity, class, and maintaining the type of character that we would want other people to emulate. And so I don't mean to get preachy or anything like that, because you know me, I'm probably as rebellious and troublesome.
Oh, no, you're not.
As you can get. But I do find it a little bit concerning that in these past years, I believe that, I absolutely love that we've learned how to use these things better. I would argue that I think we're now dominating this sphere. The only time the left has an advantage over us is when they're misusing things.
Right.
Or, when they go and buy tons of shell accounts and shadow accounts and astroturf these things, because there's always money behind it. I wish the right would be more interested in putting money behind it.
Yeah.
But you and I know that this is not the case. But So while I absolutely love that and I find it to be incredibly productive, it's a fantastic way to share information. It's a fantastic way to move stories that need to have more attention. The whole reason I got into all of this, the whole reason I ended up writing was because I was so frustrated that there were stories I believed more people needed to know about that weren't getting attention.
Right.
And that's really what kind of sucks me into everything. And so I love that I feel like we really have a good handle on that. I love what I'm seeing coming from sites like Free Beacon and the Federalist, and even organizations like AEI, who are really taking a hard look at cultural things.
Right.
And they know how to troll the left, and they do it brilliantly. So I love that. We're learning how to beat them at their own game. And I would also argue that sites like Free Beacon and being able to insert levity and humor but still win the argument and still have solid reporting, that's the way we're going to win this game. And keeping our focus on the long game as opposed to short-term election goals. But I do, like I said, as much as I love that, it does concern me that more on the right a tendency to emulate the behavior of the left as opposed to just beating them. We don't have to be like them to beat them, because we're not them, and it's never going to be that way.
I've written this down as a good piece of advice, and what I wrote down was, don't be like the left, stop acting like John Brodigan. So,
I think perfect. That is a fantastic way to sum it up.
Yeah, I really do try to sum things up, so that I don't forget them. Kemberlee Kaye from Legal Insurrection is joining us. Kemberlee, before I let you go, I did probably the most pertinent question that I have for you. Over at Legal Insurrection, of course, one of your cohorts there is the Tuesday night Snark Factor news babe, Amy Miller. What trouble has she gotten into?
All kinds of trouble. Right now she's actually doing the Lord's work in Louisiana. God love her. She's over there helping to make sure that Miss Landrew is beaten handily. So everyone's been well wishes and prayers and happy thoughts to Amy.
She's in New Orleans and she's enjoying the nightlife. Stop it! She's taking in all the food and
for
culture.
those of you who've been out block walking, and I know most of us have clocked in our hours doing that and still do during election season. It is tedious, thankless work, but it's for America, right?
I remember back in the day when I used to do that for free. Kind of like this. For free. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, the good old days. Kemberlee, where can everybody get a hold of you? And on the Twitters, on the Facebook, where the peoples can reach out to you on the interwebs.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can always find me at Legal Insurrection, of course, there, and then on Twitter, I'm at Kemberlee Kaye, but just be forewarned, my name is spelled really weird. It's Kemberlee. So no I's, no Y's, all E's. My mother did that. It's not something pretentious I did to myself. So, but yes. But I'm always around, usually friendly, provided I'm caffeinated. So, but yeah.
Excellent, Kemberlee. Thank you so much for taking the time. Love having you on.
Thank you. Of course. Thanks so much for having me, and you guys have a great day.
Well, definitely will, and have you back on again soon. We're going to take a really quick break here on Bourbon on the Rocks here on the mighty FTR Radio, and we will be right back.
Hey there, FTR Radio fans. This is Josh Gillespie, host emeritus here on FTR Radio. I want to tell you about the Shoutcast app. Download it to your favorite smartphone today. Then, search for FTRradio.com. Never miss your favorite FTR show again. This is a must-have for any FTR Radio listener. Download the Shoutcast app today.
Hey there, Internet radio fans. Jason Dibbler here. Does scintillating conversation get you going? Are you seeking out occasional moments of sheer brilliance? Well, then have we got a show for you. Join the Smoozy Q, Susie Moore, the Dainty Rhino Mark Warner, and me every Tuesday night at 9, 8 Central for Q with a View, right here on FTRradio.com.
The news doesn't miracle itself to the TV or to the newspaper or to the radio each day. A reporter has to find the news and, well, report it. But anymore, the news seems to be whatever comes out of the entertainment websites or the rehashed and repeated talking points from cable news chatter. If you really want to know what's going on, if you really want to know what your government is doing, and more importantly, what they're doing to you, too oftentimes you're out of luck. But not at watchdog.org. At watchdog.org, there's a simple mission. Report on local and state government. Hold government accountable. We put solid, tough-nosed reporters in the states and state houses, and they dig to tell you what you need to know. Whether it's corruption at the State House, or big government run amok at the local level, or the scary future of the militarized police forces, Watchdog.org has been telling the stories that matter for years. If you want some real news, some real reporting, join us at Watchdog.org.
Hi, this is Monica Crowley, and you are listening to FTR Radio.